This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard
On VSiN.
Here we go. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the sports betting network. Mitch Moss along with Paulie Howard. We are live in downtown Vegas. Circa Resort and Casino is the spot. Busy 3-hour program lined up today. Great guests on the program. Adam Rittenberg to talk college football coming up in an hour. ESPN senior writer. Scott Seinberg on the show. NFL playoffs with him. VSiN host does a great job with his trench report. Lifelong Hoosier Wes Reynolds on location in Atlanta for the game tomorrow night on the show, and a longtime friend of this program, Adam Chernoff, talking NFL playoffs as well. We get a big boy tonight, Paulie. We get the bad SEC, a blue blood here that's been doing it for years in Ole Miss, taking on the laughingstock ACC, represented here by Miami. And but books now moving towards Ole Miss. There are still 3.5s out there. There's going to be juice on this. It's either 3.5 even money at most books in Miami, or -3, -120, which is a situation here at Circa, and the total is at 53. Strong on the game. I have a prop on the game that I like.
Yeah. Well, I was talking to a bunch of people down at the book before the show, and they all said, "Who do you like?" I said, "Ole Miss," and they all said, "I like the other side." And everyone was pro Miami. But this is set up beautifully for Cristobal, and that's where I'm worried that he could blow it. Like, how many phone calls in the last week about, hey, former teammates, whatever, Miami alum, we're going to have a home game in the championship. Oh, we got to beat Ole Miss first, right?
Yeah, and so to your point, by the way, not only here at the book, but I think every single person I've talked to off the air, like on a phone call or specifically like text messages, they made the case for Miami. I don't think I've heard one person, to me anyway, say, give me Ole Miss. I think they're going to win the game outright. I love the points. Hasn't happened. And also,
I want Cristobal as the dog.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I got there right before you did. Damn
okay,
it.
damn.
Yeah.
You're juggling two jobs at the same time. The two biggest stories in college football, the two biggest messes, it's because of Kiffin. Now not letting his assistants coach. What happened with Williams, right? It was set up beautifully. That's why he let him coach. He thought they're going to lose to Georgia.
That's right.
And he would look great. But, they beat Georgia. It's like they couldn't beat him with me. They're not going to beat him without me, and they did. But Miami's been so good on defense. They've controlled the line of scrimmage. 17 points allowed or fewer, 6 in a row. 24 points allowed the last 3 games. Dominant up front. Fletcher's great. Bain's great. But then you got this great Ole Miss offense, and Chambliss just playing at a whole nother level. And what they did in the second half against Georgia was incredible. But I do think when you're looking at every possible edge in a game like this, where it's staff is gone, losing coaches to LSU, Miami an extra day to rest and prepare, I think Miami wins a close one.
So this is where it finally catches up to Ole Miss,
I would think so, yes.
The coaching staff. Okay, because with Miami anyway, they did a really good job against Carnell Tate, who declared for the draft. Some mocks already have him projected to go top 5. Who knows? Very early with that. But they did have, obviously, a major problem with Jeremiah Smith. So now you're going to get this dude, Chambliss, who, I don't know, man, if he played the entire year, could have won the Heisman. I mean, he's like Heisman good, right? So I think this is a major upgrade going from a freshman in Julian Sayin to Trinidad Chambliss. Right. Also 500 yards plus rushing on the season. Lacey is 36 yards short of 1,500 on the year, has 23 rushing touchdowns. You have that going for him as well. And as you said, I mean, Miami has been the story so far. Well, one of the stories with that defense, but they were also dogs at A&M, big dogs on a neutral against Ohio State, and now you have to win by more than a field goal if you're betting this game with them.
And expected to win, yeah?
Yeah.
Either way, it's a great story. And I know we talked to Oxford Bob, who's at the game. It's they're tired of the Kiffin stuff. They're tired of being talking about it, being asked about it, chip on their shoulder. Either way, it's a great story. You have the team that the coach deserted them right before the playoff in their biggest game in the history of the program, starting the playoff, or you get Miami. Ole Miss hasn't done anything since the 60s, and Miami hasn't won it in 24 years, but then the U is back, and Miami would have a home game in the championship.
Yeah.
So either way, it's an incredible story, whoever wins tonight.
So I was making note of, go ahead.
What were you say about Beck? Where you at with Beck?
I'm on one of his props.
All right.
That's where I came to the conclusion last night that it was worth a bet if the number was correct, and I believe it is. So I'll get into that in a second. I wanted to point out, looking at some of these props last night before they're kind of settling in now, a few hours before game time. If you were browsing last night and looking, Mark Fletcher was as low as 88.5 rushing yards. That was here at Circa. And at the same time, he was available at about 96.5, which is where he is, latest check anyway, in the game. Is he going to get 100 yards in this game, you think? Don't they rely heavily on him compared to Beck throwing the ball?
Yes.
That's where I'm at, too.
It's like Henry. He needs 25 carries, touches.
I would agree.
Mm-hmm.
Lacey was as low as 75.5 last night, as high as 83.5. So the Beck yardage prop was between 228.5 and 238.5. So a 10-yard difference there. Now, his completions prop was 20.5, attempts 30.5. Get this. He went over 20.5 completions in 9 out of 14 games this year. However, he only threw the ball 31 plus times in 3 out of those 14 games. That's it. So he was under 30.5 attempts 11 out of 14 games. His completion percentage was 74.4%. If you could actually find a correlated parlay here, I couldn't find it, but completions over and attempts under, he can hit that mark. Like, he could easily go 22 of 30 in this game. But I landed on under 30.5, and you can find 31.5. I just missed. I was actually going to bet that minus 125 on 31.5 below that. I missed that number, and I played under 30.5 at plus 101 earlier today, because I do believe that this is going to be a game where it's not going to be like such a hurry up offense when they have the ball. It's going to be much more Fletcher going against this Ole Miss defense, a guy that you can rely on for, like you said, 20, 25 carries. Maybe he gets 100 yards, and then you don't have to have Beck throw the ball. And they never did that this year anyway, just ran it down for you. Mm-hmm. So I played under 30.5. Hopefully, that's how the game plays out for me.
Receiving's tough. Who's going to lead in receiving and who could have a big game for both games. You can look at Caesars, and Tony's the favorite 6-1, and they have most passing, rushing, and receiving for the semifinal games. I think that's tough to gauge. You're going to read on it. Also goes down to game flow and if someone's trailing. But the other thing I can't get away from is Miami has played 3 top 10 teams. They've never trailed.
No. Oh, that's strong.
That is strong. That's astonishing.
Good write-ups on the game as well at vsin.com. Adam Burke with one of the write-ups. Situational football. It leans towards the Hurricanes as well. They're better on third down, both offensively and defensively. They also have the better red zone offense, TD percentage, 69% to 64.5%, and a better red zone defense a little bit. But however, when it comes down to who's going to be in the red zone and if you can't and kick field goals, we saw it against Georgia. Ole Miss has a superstar kicker. And now it is actually, right before the show started, media covering the game said, thank goodness it's covered here, because it's raining and hailing outside right now in the Phoenix area. Mm-hmm. So that dude... That has been a slick field, though, in the past, by the way. Check out the Super Bowl from a couple years ago when the Eagles took on the Chiefs. That was a storyline. Isn't that where the Michigan TCU college football playoff game was played as well? I think
you're right, yeah.
And a major issue. But if it's going to be solid with the field tonight, you can trust that guy from way downtown.
Miami 0-4 all-time in the Fiesta Bowl. Can they slow down Chambliss, who's averaging 8.5 yards per dropback, QBR of 91. 644 yards, 3 touchdowns in these last couple of games. He's been nuts. But this Miami defense in the playoffs, highest turnover rate, interception rate, sack rate, pressure rate, tackles for loss per game, and held Ohio State to 14 points.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I would lead under 2 in this game. I don't think we see a lot of points, and I would think the game plan for Miami, like you said, is run, and feed Fletcher, or maybe some short stuff to Tony.
There's also that angle with Beck where he hasn't really had to throw, nor has he thrown for, it's 240 yards in the first 2 games so far. That's it.
Who is he? Like A.J. McCarron? I mean, he wins games, but the stats aren't there? You don't ask a lot out of him?
Yeah, you really don't have
36-5 is his record.
Well, okay. The results don't lie with that. Some other trends, when you go back and look, I get it. It's a brand new landscape. Things have changed big time in college football, but since 2010, when ACC bowl or playoff teams have been favored by 4 points or fewer, they are 34-16 under the total. Neutral site games since 2014, Miami 3-11 ATS. That's 21%. Ole Miss 73% in non-conference games the last 6 years. But again, Chambliss wasn't even the starting quarterback before the year started. Playing Division II at Ferris. Never even heard of the school before. And Lane Kiffin was the head coach. So I don't know how much stock you want to put into this.
I think the chip on the shoulder is worth something. I mean, the
Though
article,
that I would agree with.
the article front page, ESPN.com, what if we are the people who win these games? A new feeling at Ole Miss. It's not Kiffin as much as people want to say.
Mm-hmm.
It had great talent, and they lucked into Chambliss, as you talked about. But certainly, talking to Ole Miss people, they're sick and tired of hearing about it, and sick and tired of the Kiffin stuff, too.
I'm looking at the schedule rank SOS for these two teams at Jeff Sagarin. Miami, 15th SOS in the country in the season. Mississippi, 37th. Could that be something? You've mentioned that in the NFL playoffs this week, where it used to be just the team with the better SOS was, if there was a big margin in that, you can bank on that team covering those games in the wild card weekend. Could that be a thing where Miami's schedule overall has been more difficult?
Yeah, I also think it's big that the SEC has embarrassed themselves. That could be another angle, too.
Mm-hmm.
They're just not who they think they are, not even close. Fans, media, Sankey, all of them. I mean, it was just, you got to get Bama in. You got to get Oklahoma in. They didn't deserve to be in.
Well,
Alabama embarrassed themselves, and they did a horrible job in the other bowl games.
I like what you said earlier, though. It's a great story either way.
Yes.
To me, college football is more interesting when Miami is a big factor. And Ole Miss would be, I've said this since the jump. If they could just give the middle finger to Lane Kiffin the entire time, I think that'd be incredible.
Yes.
I would love that if they could rub it right in his face. And then LSU would be like,
what do we do?
Yikes.
I know.
Are we sure about this? Up next, well, we're going to spend a lot of the show talking about that game tonight and also Wild Card Weekend. I don't think you can ignore how some dogs, home dogs, have done in the playoffs going back a good decade in the league. Coming up next.
So you're listening to this podcast because you want an edge. But what if I told you you're only halfway there? You've got the mindset. Now it's time to get the toolkit to match. Here's the thing. Pro bettors spend thousands on data and tools, but what they don't want you to know is you can get the same edge for a fraction of the cost with VSiN Pro. With VSiN Pro, you get access to expert picks, public betting data, prop projections, powerful tools, analytics, and more. Tap the link in the description and see why thousands of bettors are already using VSiN Pro to cash more bets.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Thanks for checking in. We're live in downtown Vegas. Circa Resort and Casino is the spot. By the way, coming up in about 15 minutes, we will get it. It's small card tonight in the NBA, but I have some strong numbers on one of the matchups. In fact, a team in action tonight is 7-0 in this precise situation, covering by more than 14 points per game so far on the year. I'll tell you about that team coming up at about 5:45 Eastern, 2:45 out here on the West Coast. Right now, we go out to the Progressive Guest Line as VSiN host Scott Seidenberg joins the program, also the man in charge of BetterDay.com, great website for sports bettors. Scott, good to talk to you today. How are you, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm just excited for the game tonight. I'm excited for the NFL playoffs. This is a really, really fun time of the year for us as sports bettors.
Yeah, this is quickly becoming, if it hasn't already, like one of the top 3, 4, 5 weekends of the entire year. So let's begin with your trench report, though, for Wild Card Weekend. I loved this idea when you came up with it early in the season, and the results do not lie. Share everybody what you decided to do when looking at the offensive and defensive lines and how you put this together for this football season.
Yeah, so I started at the beginning of the season wondering if there was a way that we can find any underreported aspects of games that could go into our handicaps. And so I looked at some offensive and defensive line metrics that are widely publicized through a variety of sites. And I decided, well, if I can take all the information out here and aggregate it and combine it and create my own metric for grading offensive and defensive lines, I wonder if we could use a matchup analysis to determine the winners of football games. And so starting in week number 5 is when I first publicly published my trench report and identifying the top 5 biggest mismatches of the week. This didn't care about the point spread, didn't care about the quarterbacks or the running backs or where the games were. It was just, does the offensive line and defensive line for Team A have an advantage over the offensive and defensive line for Team B? And over the course of the season, since week 5, those top 5 mismatches went 51-19 straight up, with 13 outright wins by underdogs. Now, what I also started to do was in week 8, I looked at the top 3 closest matchups, the games where the Trench Report really didn't see an edge for one team over the other. And if you blindly just took the points with the underdogs in those games that were so closely lined in my Trench Report, you went 20, 12, and 1 ATS with 12 outright winners by those underdogs. The old adage is the game is won in the trenches. It really is one in the trenches, guys.
Oh, that's incredible stuff right there. It also tied into certain running back props, right? Like if a team had an absolute edge, and you can explain this exactly where the edge may have been with if it was the rush block win rate, whatever it was overall, but were those running player props for running backs going over like blindly with their props for that week?
So the RB1s, and what I did was I started to identify the top 5 rushing mismatches every week. So which team had a significant run blocking edge on their offensive line versus the opposing defense's run stuff unit on their defensive line. Again, this is not looking at teams and how many yards they give up per game or the other, because sometimes obviously linebackers are involved in tackling, defensive backs are involved in tackling. This was only looking at the line play. And if you just took the RB1s, the 5 running back ones to go over their weekly props, since I started publishing this Trench Report, you had a 13% ROI on your investment on just blindly betting the overs.
Pretty good.
Nice.
Okay, so let's fast forward now to Wild Card Weekend. Is there a clear mismatch on one of the 6 games that we have that you can share?
Yeah, the biggest mismatch by far is the Rams. And that's obviously, it's not going to, what does that tell us? It's a heavy spread anyway. But the Rams over the Carolina Panthers is a massive mismatch. The Rams overall, guys, are one of the best trench units in the entire NFL. They have the number 2 ranked offensive line. What I did also was I ranked the offensive and defensive lines just out of the playoff teams. So the 14 teams in the playoffs, I ranked them by my Trench Report grades at the end of the regular season. And of the 14 teams in the playoffs, the Rams have the number 2 offensive line and the number 2 defensive line. So they're going to have a pretty significant edge over most anybody that they play in this postseason. And that is by far the biggest edge here in round 1 is the Rams over the Panthers.
Okay. Scott Seiberg, our guest, you can follow him on X. He is at Scott's on Air, VSiN host, also the man in charge of betterday.com on the Progressive Guest Line. Do we have a dog or 2 this weekend, per your numbers that you were saying, that could have an edge in the trenches this week?
We actually have 2. Now, one of them is a very close game, and that's one that we saw earlier this season where I was actually on the wrong side of that game, but did I get unlucky? Maybe there was an onside kick. But that's the Bears and the Packers. In the Trench Report, the Bears have a slight edge over the Green Bay Packers. It is the closest matchup of the week, though, but it does lean towards the Chicago Bears. And then the Pittsburgh Steelers on Monday night have a clear edge over the Houston Texans. So we know Tomlin, dog, Monday night, Tomlin. We know people are going to be on the Pittsburgh Steelers, but they have the edge clearly over the Houston Texans in the trenches.
I'm guessing that you already fired on the Steelers when they were catching 3.5, or am I wrong with that?
Soon as it opened up.
As soon as it opened up.
As soon as it opened up. They beat the Ravens, and I'm like, let's look at the line here, because no matter who they play, we knew who they were going to play, right? And so I knew that they were going to be a dog. I said, no matter what the line is, I said, as soon as it opens up, I'm firing in on Sunday night.
So let's say that the form holds here and the best teams in the trenches make deep runs. Just what would a Super Bowl game look like based on your numbers that you put together?
Now, keep in mind, guys, that the numbers will change maybe slightly after their performances in the wild card round. So I'm just going off of the numbers going into the playoffs. Now, I don't expect the numbers to change that drastically unless somebody has like a really good performance in the trenches or a really bad performance, gives up a lot of sacks or a lot of tackles for loss or something like that. But if we just looked at the bracket based off of the regular season numbers going into wild card week and we project every matchup moving forward, the Super Bowl will be the Denver Broncos against the Los Angeles Rams. And in that game, I can tell you, it is the closest Trench Report game that I have seen this entire season. It is less than a 1-point discrepancy in my scoring system between the Rams and the Denver Broncos.
Wow. And you would also have the Broncos beating the Steelers, if this holds true again, in the AFC title game to get there, and the Rams over the Eagles in this scenario.
Yep. So the big people are going to look at, well, how do these teams get there? Well, the Rams obviously beating the Seattle Seahawks in the divisional round, the Broncos over the Buffalo Bills. Then it would be the Steelers over the Patriots, with the Eagles over the Bears. Although I will say the Eagles and Bears only a 1.2 point discrepancy. So if you're looking for maybe a dark horse or a sleeper team that you think could make a deep run here, the Chicago Bears would be that team. I think the two dark horses, based off the Trench Report, would be the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and looking at your notes, by the way, the top 5 dogs that won outright based on the Trench Report was that game, actually. That was the third biggest dog to win when the Bears played on Black Friday against Philadelphia, and they were around plus 275 to win the game based on how they would have the edge there in the trenches.
Yeah, I tracked, I looked back over the course of the season, and I wondered what were the biggest wins for the Trench Report as far as like underdogs winning outright. And yet Bears over the Eagles was the third biggest win. The biggest win actually came in week 18 with the Browns walk-off winner over the Cincinnati Bengals. Giants beating the Eagles in week 6 was a game that the Trench Report actually identified because Philly had some bad trench numbers earlier in the season. And then it was Steelers over the Ravens in week 14 was another dog outright winner that it selected. And Jets over the Bengals in week 8 was a game that had a trench advantage, believe it or not.
Very good. And again, you share all the numbers up. People can go there at bettorday.com, BETTOR day.com is the site. In about a minute here, do you have a best bet that you like in tonight's game or tomorrow night's game in college football?
Yeah, I can't get away from Miami money line tonight because with all the coaching drama that's going on here at Ole Miss with the coaches doing double duty, people need to acknowledge that Ole Miss caught a break by playing 2 teams already that they have played in the regular season, meaning they already had workup done on these teams. The binders were already complete. They had full film studies and breakdowns on Tulane and Georgia, where if you're missing a couple of assistant coaches, it's okay. You just go back and you look at what you did in the prior work, and then you adjust a couple of things. Now you're doing a full install against an opponent that you've never seen before with no coaches. That is a big concern for me tonight. Plus, Miami's pass rush is unlike anything that Ole Miss has ever seen this season. If you're looking for a prop bet, I like Trinidad Chambliss to go under 23.5 rushing yards because in college football, guys, the sacks go against the quarterback's rushing numbers. And Miami averages 7.5 yards lost per sack this season. It's the most in the country. They have the most sacks in the country. 2 sacks tonight on Trinidad Chambliss. That means he's probably going to have to rush for over 40 yards in order for him to break this prop and go over 23.5. So give me Miami money line and Trinidad Chambliss under 23.5 rushing yards.
Awesome spot, Scott. Right. And again, follow him on X. He's at Scott's On Air, VSiN host. Thank you, my man. Enjoy the games tonight.
Enjoy it, guys. Talk to you soon.
There you go. And you can become a VSiN Pro subscriber today. Sign up now for as little as $9.99. You're going to get daily best bets, picks from all the hosts, exclusive betting splits, full access to tools and data as well. vsin.com/subscribe. Again, a team in action tonight, 7-0 in this precise spot, covering by more than 14 points per game on the year.
This is VSiN, the sports betting network.
Follow the money. That's what I always say. You always follow the money. Yeah.
This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
We are live in downtown Las Vegas from the Circa Resort and Casino. Busy hour coming up. Longtime friend of the show, Adam Chernoff, going to join us for 2 full segments in 15 minutes. We'll talk Wild Card Weekend and the playoffs in general, our best bets before the end of the show as well. And right now we go to the Progressive guest line as lifelong Hoosier, IU alum, and he's also here at VSiN, a familiar voice. To those of you in the audience, Wes Reynolds joins us as he is live in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl tomorrow night, Indiana and Oregon. Hey, Wes, how you feeling right now, man? What are the level of nerves at?
Yeah, I'm actually live in Nashville because we're going to be driving down. I think I'm in the parking lot of that gas station that was on Bad Beats a few weeks ago with Scott Van Pelt, the Quick Sack, here just outside the Nashville airport as we are driving down to Atlanta tonight. You know, a little bit of nerves, but I feel good. You know, I was talking with Paul before the break. This has been a hell of a ride if it ends even tomorrow night.
Yes.
To win the Big Ten title, to win the Rose Bowl game. And we were talking about that when we were leaving Pasadena last week. It's like, man, this is just gravy now. But as we get closer and closer, it's like, man, I want it all and I want it now, like that Queen song was. We're so close, to win another bowl game and potentially go to a national championship game. And I feel good about these guys. They've given me no reason to doubt them. They've come up clutch every single time when they've been up against it, too, when they were up against it at Iowa, when they were up against it at Penn State, in a tight grinder game in the Big Ten title game with Ohio State. They've given me no reason to doubt them. So this is going to be a war tomorrow night. No question about it. And that Oregon defense was absolutely impressive in the Orange Bowl. So going to be high leverage, and it's going to be close. We're not going to have the luxury of singing and, being all joy like we were in the Rose Bowl. There's going to be some knuckle crushing and some fingernail biting in this one.
How big is the Davison injury in your opinion?
I think it's big. I think, the fact that Oregon might have two healthy running backs, and Oregon ran the ball okay in the first half, and then it got shut down in the second half. The numbers are a little deceiving because the Hoosiers did sack Dante Moore 6 times, so you got to take out that sack yardage. But, I think it's worrisome if they can't run on Indiana. And Alabama, they couldn't run it anyway all year, and they couldn't run it on Indiana. Ohio State couldn't run it on Indiana. So is Oregon going to be able to find a way? Because I think if they have to trust Dante Moore, and put it all on him, as talented as he is, I don't know if he can do it. He hasn't proven it, I think, in his toughest 3 games. The toughest 3 defenses they played were Iowa, and also Indiana. And he's got 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions against the top 3 defenses, including Texas Tech as well in the Orange Bowl, I should say. So he hasn't put up those big numbers in the big-time games yet this year.
Very good.
Yeah. So you were there, though, live in Autzen for that game as well, and you saw what I thought was an ass-kicking. What scares you the most about Oregon then?
The explosives, because I think that they can. You've watched these guys over the years, Mitch. They have speed all over the place, especially at receiver. And those guys, it seems like they're open, like nobody's within 20 yards of these guys sometimes. And Sadiq, the tight end, did not really much because he was injured in that first meeting in Autzen, but now he's going to be back and good to go. So that's a different wrinkle, I think, in this matchup of that Oregon offense that Bryant Haynes and the defense are going to have to solve.
The other unknown here, which we know what he's going to do, but it's what's going to happen on 4th down. And as Mitch has been all over Lanning, I think, and rightfully so, he hates field goals and he won't punt. So he also doesn't read the room, where you thought there was going to be a low-scoring game and Tech wasn't going to move the ball against them, yet he went for it on 4th down 8 times. What do you make of the Lanning thing?
Yeah, he did, and one of the reasons why he did is because Oregon didn't run the ball that great, and Texas Tech, we know, really good on the defensive line, one of the best in all of college football, so they were kind of forced into that scenario, and that's what really decided the first meeting, guys, I think, on 4th down, but also 3rd down. Nobody's better than Indiana on 3rd down this year. They're number 1 on offense, and they're number 2 on defense, and if you look at Indiana and some of their high-profile games, like Oregon State, Iowa, Penn State, you look at the yards per carry, and it's like, man, it's not much. It's right around 3, a B average, basically, with the GPA, but it was good enough. Like, they ran it just well enough, and they ran it on the downs that they needed to run it on. So I think Indiana, you're looking at the same thing here, and they just want to get into that situation where Mendoza can make the clutch throws, and he's done it every single time this year.
Mm-hmm. You went to Indiana. Is this the best, forget college football, is this the best coaching job you've ever seen, what Cignetti's done? And if you could put in perspective how bad and how down was Indiana football?
Yeah, I don't know who's better, Paulie. I think the fact that he came in and, he had the bravado and IU sucks and so does Michigan and Ohio State and I win, Google me. Mm-hmm. A lot of that was, hey, I got to promote a program to a dormant fan base. Because when he came here, and he's done some interviews about it, it was just like the press, like the offices were old. The vinyl banners were getting less color in them. Basically, it just looked dull, basically. And now he's brought this program and I think this whole operation to life here. And it obviously helps with the NIL, and he's a superb talent evaluator. and also being able to get players, because if you look at what they've already done in the portal, they had about a 4-hour window on Saturday to host 13 prospects, and they've already got about half of them committed, including Josh Hoover, the quarterback from TCU. So this thing is not stopping. I don't know what the ceiling is for this thing, but I know we're not going back, basically. We're not going back to like 6 wins and struggling to get into a minor bowl. Like, this is going to continue to be a really good program, I think, for years to come under Cignetti.
Better story, what he's doing right now, and if they win the national title, or had Gordon Hayward shotgun in against Duke and Butler wins the national title?
That's a hard one for me personally, Mitch, because my grandpa was in the Butler Athletics Hall of Fame and played ball there for Tony Ankle. So that was so special for the city. But I think that's the NCAA tournament. You will see that kind of Cinderella. You don't get a Cinderella in college football, and especially and I call them a Cinderella, even though they're still the number 1 seed and the lone undefeated team, because they're kind of getting treated that way a little bit in the media. It's like, we can't wrap our heads around the fact that Indiana is the best team in the country. Does that mean they're going to win the whole thing? We'll see tomorrow, but they can't wrap their heads around it. They're like, okay, the other shoe's got to drop, man. They just don't have the talent. The other shoe's got to drop, but it hadn't been dropping, guys.
That's a great point. Did you watch Game Day last week? Saban told the story of hanging out with his golfing buddies, and they're like, well, we're just going to kick Indiana's ass, so it's not going to be a problem. And that's you're right about how people just can't accept that Indiana's the best team.
Yeah, I saw the clip. I was unfortunate. I was getting drenched at the Rose Parade last week at Pasadena, so I didn't get to watch the show. But I did see that clip about Saban. But fortunately, McAfee's up there to carry the banner for Indiana University because he knows where he sleeps.
Okay, so let's talk about it from a betting perspective then. Do you have a bet on it? Possibly an emotional hedge, I don't know. And if let's say that you were removed from the situation and you were not a lifelong Hoosier and you didn't go to the school, what would you make the number and how would you bet it then?
I would make the number where it is 3.5. I think that's a fair number. I played money line here, just to take the points out of play. I think another option you could play is Oregon team total under 21.5. And I know there's some sharp guys betting the total over because that went up and we saw some 48s yesterday. And I think that's part and parcel of the fact that it's a fast track in Atlanta. No weather involved, Mercedes-Benz Stadium there. But you look at the Indiana defense, Mitch. They gave up 13 to Oregon, because take out the pick 6. They gave up 10 to Ohio State, and they gave up 3 to Alabama. So 3 of the top 8 teams in the tournament. Indiana's the only one that has wins over 3 of the top 8 teams. 26 points in 3 games, less than 9 a game. Very hard for me to take an over in this spot. It's like, I got to believe that somebody's going to solve Brian Haynes because nobody's been able to do it so far. And there's a reason why now at Indiana, as absurd as this sounds, we are now paying $3 million a year for a defensive coordinator.
Yes, it is. Well, here's the thing, too, with that. I think we saw this against Alabama in the Rose Bowl. Cignetti probably will not take his foot off the gas, right? I mean, you know the guy, been following this as closely as anybody. It feels like if they have a chance to score another touchdown, he probably will.
Well, it's like he said on that 60 Minutes piece a couple weeks ago, attack at all times. And that's what they do. And, he's ruthless in a good way, and that's what you have to be. You can't be a nice guy. Like, he's not like a mean-spirited guy. Like, he doesn't scream. He's not a ranter or a raver, but I love this coaching matchup between the two because I think both Lanning and Sig are complete psychopaths, but in a completely different way. Like, Lanning's demonstrative and he's fiery and, hey, they're counting on clicks, we're counting wins and all that stuff. And Cignetti's just like, okay, keep the main thing, and he's all business. So, yeah, I've got no reason to – the guy's 25-2, Mitch. I got no reason to go against him yet.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier, Wes, in like a minute. This has to be made into a movie. If so, who would be your top candidate or candidates to play Cignetti?
Oh, man, I got to go somebody a little bit older. He kind of has that blunt demeanor that I've seen some of the characters play. Maybe like a Dan Aykroyd. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we got that. We got him.
Came in, yeah.
Yeah, that was on Twitter for sure.
Okay, yeah, because he kind of reminds me of that, like how quick he is. It reminds me of the Zelensky character in Tommy Boy, where he just speaks so bluntly and then just moves on. Sorry about your marbles, you're Z.
All right, pal. Thanks for the time during this busy trip. that you're about to watch yet again with this team. Can't believe it. Nobody can. And hopefully they bring it home for you one more time. Thanks, Wes. Enjoy the game.
You bet. Thanks for having me on, fellas.
There you go. Wes Reynolds here at VSiN. From the state, lifelong Hoosier, went to the school. And he's right. I mean, like, nobody could have ever predicted this.
No way.
Come on.
Not this fast. Too.
No, not a chance. Hardcore breakdown, wild card round coming up next. Longtime friend of the show, Adam Chernoff, with his thoughts on all 6 games. Follow the money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
We continue here with Adam Chernoff on the program. Part of a Grandissimo entry that won it here at Circa, by the way. And he's been on this show for like 6-7 years. This year, little hiatus. He's in South America right now, has been for several months. Hope he's okay with me saying that. So you referenced this in the first segment, Adam, and that is a sports book that you notice, an offshore book, with maybe like some leans their way when they were different than every other book in the world, or some late movement and how sharp it was this year. Give us the details on that.
Yeah, it's been interesting because a lot of Odd Screens products in the space are competing now. So you're getting a wider variety of feeds and a wider variety of books to look at. And it's been well known among pros that Bet Ward takes very high limits, and they've been very good to higher stakes players for quite a while. And I'm telling you, watching the screen weekly with some of the ways that they have been shaded on numbers and just seeing the market react to it. For years, it was always Chris that was driving that direction. And now that's kind of changed a little bit in some instances. And we're seeing some other books take over. And even in this weekend of wildcard playoffs, we've seen some pretty big, I would just call it like shading or stances being taken. But man, I tell you guys, like all season, watching some of these late moves here has just been crazy how predictive it's been. And whoever's betting there, betting a lot of money and doing very, very well this season, to put it lightly.
Okay. What do you make of the Bills? A team you've been high on in the past. One prominent media member picked them to win the Super Bowl today. The power rating is, to me, off based on what I've seen on the field and the issues they've had defensively. And who do you trust if you're Allen to get a first down? Who are you throwing to on 3rd and 8? But here they are. I mean, Jacksonville 8-0 straight up an ATS run at home, yet the Bills favored. Let's start there Sunday.
Yeah, never mind who can Allen trust on 3rd and 8, Paulie. Who can he trust his own legs with the injuries that he's potentially dealing with, which we know huge part of his playoff success. I mean, he has not looked the same since that injury is made public. And so what does that look like in this game, in this matchup against the Jags defensive front that's been very, very creative? But I very popular over. I'm seeing the over everywhere. I don't agree with that at 52.5. I think this plays a little bit tighter than is being projected by opinions and thoughts. So as I said, Allen dealing with the injuries. You pointed it out. Where do these big plays come from on key downs? We know what the Bills want to do on offense. They're the best that they can be when they're running the football. That's what they're going to try to do with James Cook. And that could work against the Jags, but the Jags have quietly been above average on defense in a lot of these cases. And so you have a bit of a stalemate there. But the other side, the Jags have been awesome with the addition at wide receivers that they've pulled in. It's all been about throwing the ball, spreading it out, and pushing things downfield. You don't beat the Bills' defense by airing it out. You beat the Bills' defense by lining up 5-6 guys up front, running the football and pounding it in the middle of this Bills defense. And so what are the Jags going to do to counter that? Because if they've been doing what they've been doing on this run that they've had, that's not working against the Bills. And so I think both of these offenses struggle more than expected, and we see a bit of a lower scoring game than projected. Okay.
So I think the 49ers-Eagles game comes down to how many guys are actually going to be healthy for the 49ers, and maybe not looking so hot, although Trent Williams was limited today. Looks like Pearsall missed yet again. Kittle was limited. This has been the never-ending story here for the 49ers, not only this year, but for several years now. And this number is touching 5.5. That's the number here at Circa. Thoughts on this game?
Well, first of all, did you guys put on the tinfoil hats and look at the electric station next to the stadium conspiracy that's emerging?
I got to tell you, this is a pretty amazing report, though.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Someone's got way too much time on Google Earth to pull that one out. But if that turns out to be something real, are we going to see are the 49ers going to have to move? What comes from this? I don't know. It was a weird report, but for anyone who didn't look at that, go and look at it. But like you said, it's the story every year, right? Niners and injuries, and it's happening at a key time. This is a awful matchup for the Niners. We talked about the difference in sportsbooks just a second ago. We saw some recreational facing sportsbooks in the U.S. on the apps post 2.5 minus 20 at open. The higher stakes offshore sportsbooks open this one up at 3.5. And there's been shading the whole way. We're out to 5.5. And guys, that might not be enough for an Eagles team that could absolutely beat down this Niners team coming up on Sunday.
Wow.
The 49ers' ability to generate pressure is non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
If you give Jalen Hurts a clean pocket, he's going to do whatever he wants against this secondary. This 49ers defense is wildly overrated, full of injuries, has been getting away with playing a lot of very bad quarterbacks down the stretch. And so I think Hurts has a good game. The Eagles offense looks good. I think with Lane Johnson back, we see the run game emerge. You may look at Eagles team total over 24.5. You might look at possibly even the over at 44.5 if you want to pile on the Eagles with props. But I think this is pretty heavily shaded towards the Eagles in the matchup front across the board. And Trent Williams, he may ultimately suit up, but I can't see him being anywhere close to 100%. And you take him not 100% off of his offensive line, it's a completely different unit. And they're not going to be able to control this game. They're going to be playing from behind. And that's where Purdy really has struggled this season, even though this offense has looked really good down the stretch. So this is pretty heavily favorable matchups here for the Eagles.
Okay. I'm fascinated by Sunday night. There's some sharp money on the Chargers. There's some great trends to point to the Chargers. May had a great year. But again, it's like the 9th easiest schedule in NFL history. They beat one team with a winning record. What do you think Sunday night? Pats 3.5.
I think the side in this game is very interesting because, like I said, we've been talking about some of these lines shaded. There was a 4 that was posted at a very prominent sports book that's a very high limit sports book, and it lasted for about a day and a half, and someone took out the 4 today, and it's now 3.5 as the best price in the market if you want to go the other way. So a massive opinion there on the Chargers to bring this game in and tighten things up. You mentioned the Pats. Not only that, a ton of games, ton of snaps for the defense against backup quarterbacks, against third-string quarterbacks. I'm looking at this game. The Chargers defense is going to force New England to make everything happen underneath. May's benefited a ton from the deep ball. He's been very good at it. But I think back, it's maybe not the best comparison. The Giants defense tried to do the same thing on Monday night. It was very impressive how methodically May was able to move the ball down the field. So the Chargers bend but don't break defense is going to slow down the Pats with their deep ball. But I still think the Pats move it and have the ability to score points. And the Chargers offense is entirely dependent on the defense they play. Can you generate edge pressure because of the tackle issues that they have? The New England Patriots pass rush, I believe, but also statistically, is the worst of any team that's not named the San Francisco 49ers in the playoffs, worst in the AFC. So the big Achilles heel for the Chargers offense is not really going to be tested in this game by this Patriots defense, even with Milton Williams back, who's an interior pressure guy. And so I think the Chargers offense is going to be able to move the football as well. So this total's leaked up a little bit. I think we'll see some over money between now and kickoff come in and push this up even higher as both of these offenses could find success.
Any strong opinion Monday night then? Steelers at home as a dog?
Most divisive game of the week by far. So I sent out a tweet Sunday prior to Ravens Steelers. And my thinking was, let's get this matchup because the Texans are going to be able to force the Steelers to play in a phone booth. Now, the number opened up higher than I expected, but throughout the week, we've seen Steelers money come in and push this number back. What's interesting to me is I think about this matchup. So I think it's absolutely true. The Texans defense is going to be able to sit and force Pittsburgh to do everything underneath, even with Metcalf coming back 4 of the last 5 games for the Steelers, their leading or second leading receiver in that game has been Kenneth Gainwell, a running back. And so it's not like the Steelers are just this crazy explosive offense, but they kind of don't have to do anything different to play optimally against this Texans defense, because Rodgers is getting the ball out of his hands so quickly. It really takes away the standard pass rush that the Texans have been so good at generating. And so perhaps we see Rodgers in this groove behind an O-line that's playing exceptionally well, and now Tomlin willing to gamble more after being called out, the big coaching and philosophy change down the stretch. The Steelers have looked, I think, a little bit better than expected. And so while I looked at this as C.J. Stroud and the Texans coming in another year where they've navigated the wild card round very well, and the issues for Stroud in the playoffs have been going to peak Kansas City at the height of the Chiefs run, and then going to peak Baltimore with the best Baltimore Ravens team we've ever seen, and their 2 losses in the divisional round. Thought they initially drew a break here against Pittsburgh, but every pro that I speak with on a weekly basis likes the Steelers in this game, and the market has reflected that in a big way. And so I'm just, in the wild card weekend, I don't want to run out and oppose all of the bettors that I respect the most. And so I will sit on the sideline on this one and see who is right. But yeah, it's been a pretty divisive game all week for me.
Is it tough finding offshore books in Colombia?
Wide open across the board. Lots of legal ones too. So there's no issues there.
Great talking to you again, man. Let's catch up again soon. Thank you. Best of luck this weekend.
Let's do it. Thanks, guys.
There you go. Adam Chernoff, our best bets in pocket plays coming up next.